How's it going, everybody? This is Dominic Minchella. I am the Kansas City Chiefs beat writer for On SI and the host of the Kansas City Chiefs Insider Podcast. Thank you guys so much for stopping in today as we continue talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and their training camp. You know, you might have remembered me talking about before training camp got underway, the expectations that I had for each player. You might remember me saying a high expectation for Rashee Rice, getting over 1,000 receiving yards, assuming that he wouldn't have been suspended by the NFL. Now that is more realistic, I don't know if that prediction is necessarily going to come true. So I pivot to the topic of today's podcast. Can Jalen Royals step up? And I say that bringing up with Rashee Rice, because if Rashee Rice is sidelined for several games this season and early, Jalen Royals is in a different boat than Xavier Worthy was last season when he stepped up into that role. And I'll break that down in a second. But here, I just want to get it out of the way and say, this is by no means me saying that I don't believe in Jalen Royals. I do. I very much do. And so do the Chiefs, from what we've seen thus far throughout training camp and heard throughout the media. Jalen Royals has the strong probability to develop into a starting piece in this Chiefs wide receiving core for the future. However, when discussing if he's ready to, step into the role for Rashee Rice, or becoming the second wide receiver or the third wide receiver alongside Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy while Rashee Rice is gone, I think that there is an expectation there, but I don't know if it's going to pan out the exact same way. And here's my reasoning why. You saw last season that Xavier Worthy had his struggles while he stepped in for Rashee Rice after his injury. And, coming out of college, that is a huge thing to be stepped into, especially because they're not knowing the injury happened in a freak accident. It didn't happen pre-season or in training camp or anything like predetermined, such as right now with Rashee Rice. There is an expectation that the NFL will suspend him due to his off-the-field mishaps a year ago. There is an expectation that Xavier Worthy will once again step into that role, that Rashee Rice role, that, the number one wide receiver, meaning that there's going to be a vacant spot that could have been Xavier Worthy's should Rashee Rice had been healthy last year, have the Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, and Xavier Worthy trifecta, but that is still yet to be seen on the Chiefs field. I understand that it may come off seeming negative, but is Jalen Royals the answer to fill into that specific role in the aid of Rashee Rice being suspended, to make sure that the Chiefs remain explosive on the offense, to make sure that, this is a wide receiver that not a whole lot of people know about because he is a rookie still. There's going to be, the defenses are going to know about him regardless, but that doesn't mean that he's 100% figured out. That's going to aid him. However, seeing how thus far Juju Smith-Schuster has stepped up in training camp, I know he's not a long-term plan for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's starting to get up there in age, and they wouldn't have just drafted or brought in several wide receivers, whether it be through the NFL draft or the undrafted free agency process. But there are a lot of wide receivers in the system now. If Juju continues that trend upward of being an important feature in this Kansas City Chiefs offense, while Rashee Rice is suspended for X amount of games, you slide in a combination of two veteran wide receivers that are Juju Smith-Schuster and Hollywood Brown to take the brunt of the work, as well as Xavier Worthy, who is hopeful, and the Chiefs are hoping that he can, carry that success over from the late season and even in the Super Bowl into this season. You see where I'm going here? Would you rather have a wide receiver room of the three main wide receivers being a second-year player, a rookie, and a veteran? Or would you rather have it be a second-year player, two veterans with a hint of the rookie splash in there? And like I said when I started off this podcast, I do believe in Jalen Royals. I think that he's going to be a tremendous asset for the Kansas City Chiefs. Matt Nagy, he has said that he is developing very well and he's a quick learner. Several other wide receivers in that room, his brethren, are saying, he's picking up what he's putting down, but there are still areas in his ebbs and flubs of the training camp process where he's starting to, he shows that he's a rookie. I do think, though, that if the NFL does come with a verdict that Rashee Rice will become suspended for X amount of games sooner rather than later, Jalen Royals, his role will be increased eminently. He's going to be a guy that they're going to have to lean on in some capacity. But in that shift where it's Rashee Rice is the clear best wide receiver on this team when healthy, if he's out of the way, you slide Xavier Worthy back into that spot because he's young, he's got experience, he knows what Patrick Mahomes wants. You slide Hollywood Brown, who is returning, looking to make an impact, into the spot that would be held by Xavier Worthy. Do you throw in Jalen Royals in that third spot? Do you throw him in that second spot? I made a prediction that he's going to be able to be an asset for this team. I just don't know how so. That leads me to the question of, will he be ready? If he continues what he's doing thus far throughout training camp, and keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, training camp is still fresh. They are just starting to get the pads on. They are still fighting the heat down in St. Joe. There is a lot of things that they're going to have to, figure out that what they want to do on the offense. And Jalen Royals, he's expected to be a crucial member of it. But is he going to be a crucial member to where you can see him getting a ton of targets during a game while Rashee Rice is out? Is he a guy that's going to be used strictly as a punt return option, or a guy that is going to be used in only short games rather than the deep pass? These are the things that we have to ask prior to the season. And once again, I will continue to reiterate it. I am not talking down on Jalen Royals. I'm just thinking from an outsider standpoint. Do you want a offense that's led by two younger guys featuring a veteran, or two veterans that features two young guys? Let me know. And when this podcast gets posted, I would love to know your feedback. You can follow me over on X at Dom Mincello, where I post and repost every single day. You're not going to want to miss anything while we continue to cover Chiefs training camp. You can also follow us at KC Chiefs on SI. All of our stories get published and for free. You're not going to want to miss anything that we got covering the Kansas City Chiefs throughout training camp. That being said, though, ladies and gentlemen, as always, be kind to one another, and I'll see you tomorrow.